Money demons. What are they and how do you banish them? Next on Smart Money. Welcome to Smart Money. I'm Julia Anderson, your host. My guest today is Mark Matson, and I want to make sure I get his book correct. He's a book author and investor and investment advisor. The book is Experiencing the American Dream: How to Invest Your Time, Energy, and Money to Create an Extraordinary Life. That's a pretty big deal. So, Mark, welcome to the show.
Great to be here with you.
Tell me, first of all, before we get into money demons and your other advice for investors, tell me a little bit about yourself and why you decided you needed to write this book.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, I'm an investment advisor, and I manage roughly $10.8 billion for families all through the United States. And I think there's just a pervasive fear. You know, for a long time, the American dream was pretty much understood by everybody. And what I like to tell people is that the American dream is only one generation from becoming extinct, because it's not something that you're born with. It's something that has to be educated and taught, the ideals and the principles and how to use it to create wealth and prosperity for you and your family. So in these very contentious political and economic environments that we have today, I thought this would be a great time to remind people the American dream is possible, it is achievable, and you can experience for you and your family.
Well, the good news is some school districts and some state legislatures are starting to say, hey, kids need to be taught financial literacy in high school, which I think is a great idea. So that's kind of where you're coming from, I think, is this concern that people really don't know how to invest for the long term. So what do you think gets in the way of a good investor? And as I said in the promo, you call them money demons.
Yeah, money demons are screens we see the world through. Some people would call them mindsets, but I think mindset downplay it. It's a screen by the way you see the world, and you don't know that it's a screen. So for example, I was born in Charleston, West Virginia. We came from the coal mines and the chemical factories there. My grandfather had a screen of seeing the world where money was evil, was hard to make, hard to keep. He had very much a victimhood type mentality. So he saw the world that way, and it really robbed him of his ability to create the American dream. My father, on the other hand, by the time he was 10 years old, was an entrepreneur 3 times over. He shined shoes downtown Charleston. He sold newspapers. He sold cloverine salve to the miners when they came out of the coal mines on a Friday night. So he worked really hard to create that idea that the future could and would be better if you created enough value for other people. But the money demon is the thing that keeps you up at night, the thing you worry about. Do I have enough? Am I going to run out? Where should I invest my money now? How can I maximize? Because most people live in a kind of a bubble of quiet desperation, and that's because of the money demons.
Well, that sounds familiar. My mother was a farm wife, and she saw investing as a way to move ahead with her life. My dad, on the other hand, thought the stock market was nothing better than going to Nevada and gambling. So I get it. I really do. So in this day and age, Mark, we have 24/7 economic coverage. We're watching the market go up and down every day, minute by minute. Does this get in the way of good long-term investing? And tell us about dividends and why that's a big deal.
Yeah, well, it definitely gets in the way. Most people, one of those money demons is a screen called investor prediction syndrome. And what that means is most people think they need an accurate forecast about economics or politics so that they can then move their money around, predicting which stocks are going to be the best, or when to get in and out of the market, or what's going to happen with the war, or what's going to happen with the election. And that keeps them at a hyper vigilant state of speculating and gambling with their money. And their Robinhood app, where you can buy, sell stocks 24/7, right next to your DraftKings app. And when I created my company 34 years ago, I thought it would get easier for investors. But in reality, it's got even more difficult for investors to prudently invest long term. And long term means 20 or 30 years, not 20 or 30 seconds. So it's a difficult thing for most investors to pull off.
Tell us a little bit about dividends and reinvesting them and why that's a big part of building wealth.
Well, yeah, reinvesting your dividends is crucial. I think a lot of people view it as I'm only going to buy high dividend stocks. That has its value for income, but if you looked at stocks in general, it often is those stocks that have lower dividends, the small cap stocks, the high book to market value stocks, not the Fortune 500 stocks a lot of people that are familiar with that have long-term a higher expected return. So S&P high dividend stocks may be in the ballpark of 10% per year historically. Small stocks, though, in 12% a year. Small value stocks, 14% a year. So while dividends are important and it's best to reinvest them, it's much better to spend your capital gains as income because it's only taxed at 20%. Let those dividends reinvest. I think you're dead right about that.
Great, thank you so much. So, in your book, you mention herd mentality, and I think what you mean by that is that you go to some club meeting or you're in the business office with somebody, and they say they've heard about a great hot stock that you should be in, or there's some other tip that somebody says, well, you really need to be buying gold, all that kind of stuff. Why is that such a danger?
I always tell people, look, herding is great for zebra, bad for investors. And you have it really right there, Julia. It's because the brain is not really engineered for academic scientific investing. It's really engineered for survival. And 10,000 years ago, when you had to outrun a saber-toothed tiger, it worked really well. If everybody else around you was running, you needed to run too. That's not how investing works. That's how major bubbles happen. So everybody wants the NVIDIA, everybody wants the next Apple, everybody wants, and they get prestige out of it. They feel like they're safe just because everybody else is doing it. But in 2000, tech stocks, which everybody's dumping all their money into now because of herding, lost 75% of its value in a very short period of time. The S&P lost 50% of its value, and it's like everybody's memory has been erased. They don't even tend to recall that at all, and it's a bad mistake for investors. Following the crowd is not the safest thing to do when you're an investor. Going against the crowd is usually what's best.
Absolutely, and just holding steady and not doing anything is a really good, I think, investment decision.
Setting on your hands is one of the toughest things to do, but often the right thing to do.
Right. Well, here we are. We're in September of 2024, and the Federal Reserve Bank is signaling that it's going to cut interest rates to now that it's got inflation back under control, so to speak. Do you think markets have already baked that rate cut in, or what do you think that Fed cut may do to things? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, I love that question because it points to a larger reality in that markets are extremely efficient. It means that all of the knowable and predictable information about the future is already factored into the price today. So to answer your question directly, yes, it's already baked in there. But trillions of other pieces of data are already baked in there too. The possible wars, the possible elections, or possible recession, possible inflation. It's all baked in there. That's why it's so difficult to beat the market. And for the vast majority of investors, once you pick out an asset category, let's say emerging market stocks internationally, you want to own every single one in that asset category and not stock pick, because no one can predict the future, and anyone that tells you they can, you should either run, don't walk in the other direction.
In your book, you talk about something called FOMO, which stands for fear of missing out. I hadn't heard about FOMO before, but why don't you explain that for us?
Yeah, so there's two types of fear I warn investors about. One is fear of crashes, and when the crash comes and someone loses 30 or 40% of their equities, they tend to fear, and the fear wells up in them, the panic wells up, and they sell when it's low, when they should be rebalancing and buying more when it's low, not selling.
Right.
On the other hand, if you don't have to remember very long ago when there was the crypto Super Bowl, when every single commercial was about crypto, and everybody was afraid of missing out. And even the commercial for Tom Brady was, I'm in.
Oh, yeah.
If other people seem to be getting rich effortlessly, it's human nature to want your piece and not let other people get ahead of you. But the fear of missing out is at least as dangerous as the fear of panic when things crash, because that causes you to make narrow bets, whether it's gold you mentioned early, crypto, other individual stocks that might have made a lot of money recently.
So what is your last best bit of advice for investors here as we head into the last half or the last fall of 2024?
This is going to seem counterintuitive to most investors, but my number one piece of advice is develop and create a true purpose for your money, that which is greater than money itself. Because until you do that, all of your instincts and your emotions and your biases suck you back into speculating and gambling with your money. And then spend some time learning some of the academic principles that have been developed over the last 40 years in the field of investing. Don't stock pick, don't market time, don't chase the market, and don't just trust someone that happened to have a good 5 or 10 year track record to manage your money. Get involved, roll up your sleeves, do a little bit of homework. It's not simple, but it is possible if you work at it a little bit.
That is super good advice. I couldn't agree with you more. I really couldn't. That was just a great summary. So my guest is Mark Matson. We've been talking about how to manage your money long term. He is the author of Experiencing the American Dream, How to Invest Your Time, Energy, and Money to Create an Extraordinary Life. Viewers who may want to find out more about Mark can visit matsonmoney.com. And if you're interested in his book, it's on Amazon on Kindle for $18, and if you want a hard copy, it's $28. Mark, thank you.
And remind them to leave a review if they like it too.
Oh, that would be good. I'm going to get one. I'm going to get your book. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
It was great being with you, Julia.
Head to youtube.com/MacTVCTV for more Smart Money episodes. Please send Smart Money comments and tips to smartmoney@gmail.com. Smart Money is available for informational purposes only and is not liable for errors or omissions or any damages arising from its content.